Next speaker is Fiona Robbe, who's a landscape architect specialising in the design of outdoor children's environments and has been for 28 years. Her work encompasses public playgrounds and parks at both local and state level, as well as play areas such as schools, preschools, zoos, churches, museums, hospitals, and anywhere where children play outside. Fiona and her team have designed more than 60 playgrounds over the last decade, winning 3 awards throughout 2012 for innovative approach to the design of children's environments. Fiona believes that imaginative play is vital for children to develop key life skills and creativity, with her projects reflecting her philosophy on design. That is, the celebration of joy and spontaneity that children bring to our lives, and to communicate to children that they are valued and important people in our society. And welcome, Fiona.
Thanks very much. It's a real pleasure to be here in Hobart. It's a first for me. I'm absolutely enchanted with that harbour, that you can actually almost palpably touch the boats and really take it with an awesome skate park, and that's pretty much as far as I've got. But give me time. So, what will this talk cover today? I'm going to carry on where Karen was describing how do we see children and young people in the public realm today. And then I'm going to move on and discuss how we design public playgrounds for community engagement. But first, a story about a park in Sydney. This is a park near our central station. It's a kind of a medium-sized park, and it's a classic, traditional, almost Victorian-style park. It has lots of birds, glorious avenues of trees and seats, grassy slopes where people lie, other slopes where backpackers wait for trains and backpacker places to open. It's that kind of park. There's a lot going on. This park is currently being redesigned in Sydney, and the design process has been going for 6 months. And just last week I was rung, and the question was, we've been going through the design process for a while, and we're just suddenly thinking, is this a park for children and young people? And we're not feeling at all sure. Gosh, the design process has been going for 6 months. And we're asking this question for the first time. I was really stunned. And the designers said, look, genuinely, we really don't know the answer. So let's just think about this for a while. It's the year 2013. We've all been evolving for millions of years, and we're asking ourselves, do children and young people belong in a park in Sydney? It's quite a question. I found that when people think of children in the city, it seems as though the adult construct is of the image up above. It's as though the city consists mainly of streets, and those streets are for working and shopping, and there are adults in those streets, and purely adults who are able-bodied. There are no children, few young people, and certainly no one with a disability, or certainly not anyone who's too elderly. We have this kind of stereotypical vision of what is a city. Rather than the view below, thanks, Kate, where we see cities as places that are lively and for community engagement, places to have fun, places for us all to go and feel comfortable and relaxed in. Why do we have this concept of what a city is all about? And when we look at children in Australian society, we see that children and young people are roughly 33% of our population, depending on how you define young person. I'm here just showing you, if you say kids and young people together, it's 33%. If you want to be more purist, defining children and young people as being 0 to 19, it's still 26%. We're talking a vast number of people. And these people love the public realm. They're not invisible. They want to be thought about. They would like their needs acknowledged. So we're thinking again, what are children and young people in our society? And we've noticed that when you're below 12 years old, we're pretty much seen as vulnerable people who need to be cotton-wooled and bubble-wrapped and protected from the public realm, or protected while you're in the public realm. And when you're somebody who's, say, magically turned 12, particularly if you're a boy, you're nothing short of a hooligan, somebody you want to keep off the streets and out of the public realm. This is also quite an interesting construct of children and childhood, growing up. Going back to what Karen was saying, how do we conceive of children in our cities? Are they citizens, or are they these kind of people? Clearly we've all been trying to move in bodies of theory, if not practice, to saying that actually children are citizens in our cities with us, and as citizens they have real rights. And that's what, the conventions of the rights of the child has been trying to sort out. Children have the right to the time, the space, and they have the right to the permission to play outdoors. This is a really important thing for how we conceive of cities. The public realm should be seen as a legitimate place for children and young people's informal recreation. This is almost a right. Well, it is an inalienable right. Kids have spatial rights in the public realm. This is key to our thinking of cities. This moves beautifully on to the concept of playable space, where play is possible across the entire public realm, not just playgrounds, and involves all generations, not just children. So this is an important moment to sort of say, what we want to do is see children as part of a community, and those communities can use the city any way they like for these kind of outcomes. And but the interesting thing is that when we think about what is a child-friendly city, what we're really saying, and Karen could say a lot about this, is that we're really talking about community-friendly spaces. And that word community is so important because kids tend to come with other people. Kids are people that come together with everyone else. It is the package deal. And cities have become places that put these competing pressures on children. There's so much going on in modern childhood. There's a sense of rampant consumerism. I want it all. Instant gratification. I want it now. Our overscheduled children's lives. Sorry, darling, we can't play right now. We're off to the music lesson. There's a sense that the city is becoming an area of urban infill, where green spaces, particularly bushland spaces, are kind of evaporating as urban infill happens. There are these more sophisticated childhoods that our children are having. As Rick was saying, when you've spent ages playing Minecraft, what is it that the outdoors is offering? We've got so many health issues and so many well-being issues for children. Obesity, depression, the list. All of these tend to mean that outdoor provision of play and playgrounds have become more important to our cities, not less important. Sometimes simply because they can relieve so many of these pressures we're talking about. And sometimes because simply they're community venues of delight. That when you think about it in a city and the way we plan our cities and we develop our spaces, sometimes playgrounds are the only place where we publicly invite everyone to come together and have fun. You could argue that perhaps a beach works the same way, but a beach is not a constructed urban environment. Our cities are. And this is why, I'd love to say that I think playgrounds have become more important than they've ever been. And it's that sense that you can all be thrown together in a mixed up old experience of life. You're all out there, but particularly having those moments of getting together and having the permission to have fun. Everyone together, not just children. And as designers for play, we can so get this experience right for our communities. And I keep noticing that this is exactly what's happening. Does it have to be expensive? No, it's about quality. It's about quality provision for children and young people. Now here's a little case study. This is a tiny playground. We were actually given a budget of $30,000, which somehow magically expanded to $60,000, but we're still not talking about a stack of money here. Really, it's a playground with 5 pieces in it, but put together with care, with real concern for how kids might be using them. What happened next has left me absolutely speechless in this space. Suddenly, there are 20 picnic tables and 2 shelters that have arrived. 20 picnic tables is a lot of people. There are 5 barbecues. There's a good-sized car park and there's a pre-existing toilet, which is a bit like a Dalek. It's like hidden way in the background. Everything's there, and everyone is turning up. And I can tell you there are far more adults turning up here than children. You can tell by the infrastructure that's going in, and that infrastructure is brand new, and I'll tell you it costs a lot more than $60,000. Case study number 2. This is one of our spaces in Perth. We fought hard to increase the size of the car park. I didn't actually realise quite what impact this was going to have. So we've got 150 car parking spaces. They're usually chockers. There's hardly a space left. And you can see what the playground looks like. So we're talking about 400 to 500 people at any given time. Okay, we had more money. It's not actually about money. It's about quality provision, and it's about quality provision for absolutely everyone, because it's not just kids who are turning up. It's the whole community, and that's what Facebook is eloquently telling us when we Google this particular playground and just catch up with what's really going on there. Now, what's not unusual in a space that's designed for everyone is that we see all hours use. And this is by no means by people who are undesirable. We want that lady in our space using it at night. This is brilliant and by no means unusual. What we also see is bunches of people coming to the playgrounds who do not have children. Adults are turning up simply to be in these spaces because of the way they're designed. It's also not unusual for there to be many more adults in these spaces than children. I've been noticing this for quite a while. And of course, it's not unusual for the equipment to wear out long before we thought it would. So we get a lot of irate clients saying, why has this digger in this case worn out so soon? Well, it's getting double if not triple the use. These are not unusual aspects of running community-oriented spaces. So how do one of these community-oriented spaces tend to look on a plan? This is just one of our really big playgrounds that are happening. This one's happening in Perth. And we think of the space as a space that's for everyone. So it has quite a community hub down in the bottom corner, toilets, kiosks, cafes, you name it, community gardens, spaces for older people, spaces for younger people, spaces for everyone. Path systems that take you around the playground, experiences in the space for everyone. So that's a slightly different take of the same thing we've always been talking about. The slightly different take is how many people are expected to come to the space and who they are, and plenty will be coming with kids and plenty will be coming without kids. For instance, we consulted with the Quadriplegic and Paraplegic Society, and they are fully intending to bring all their people in wheelchairs to the site on a regular basis, which means once a week. We only know what goes into a big space like that because of consultation. Consultation informs design, and I'm really passionate about this topic, and it was great to see our other speakers before me cover this so eloquently. This is just an example of one of our consultative techniques of consulting with children and the kind of outcomes that we get. Delightful process, very rich, very meaningful. What we found with consultation is the process itself is valuable, but it's meaningless unless we really, really pay attention to getting that beautiful information, fun information that they all told us into succinct documents that translate what people have to tell us into design outcomes. So the report on the left summarises, in this instance, what children are telling us, but it could go a lot further than children. The little document on the right is the key. This is the piece of gold. This takes that report over there and it turns it into a design brief. So it's translating community wishes, community vision into design language for designers. And then we design accordingly to that brief. That becomes our blueprint for success. This is the piece of information that becomes so politically useful, because everyone then says, we are providing water play because the kids said so. We're doing this because the Paraplegic Quadriplegic Association said so. It's not about some fancy designer said so. It is because people told us this. It's subtle, but we're finding it amazingly powerful. Along with that, we're finding that if you can put what people tell you into a visible piece of graphics, that's very powerful, it's amazingly readily taken up. So we're able to say, yes, we consulted with 36 kids. From those 36 kids, we've got 896 comments about what they would like. We've then analysed their comments and we can tell you the top themes across those 36 kids, and we can tell you what's more important. So that's that bottom document and how decision makers tend to see it. And the background document is telling us about a much larger process we went through with many, many more stakeholders, and sort of getting a sense of what are all the stakeholders telling us and quantifying bits of it. Now, I don't really like quantifying qualitative data, but I'm finding that in order to have kids' voices in particular have real strength in our government processes, this works. And I'm up for anything that works, that represents kids well and authentically. And I'm finding that this is beginning to work because the decision makers can walk around and say 86.7% of children told us that they wanted water play, and 96% of adults said the same thing. So water play is obviously really important, rather than we're not going to do water play. So once we've done all this good consulting and we have the design brief, what are we finding really works for community-based design for play? I'm going to go through a few principles that we found to be invaluable. I like these sort of photos because it explains who we're designing for. Everyone's turning up. All ages, all abilities. We tend to create spaces which I always call this the cup of soup image. It's like a whole lot of floating things coming together, but it's much more than that. This is a series of loosely connected rooms, and that's what the whole key of designing a good space for children in particular is all about. These loosely connected rooms allow everyone to move backwards and forwards through all the spaces. They importantly have a sense of intimacy. They also have an overall coherence. And as the kind of species we are, we like having that sense of overall coherence, but we like discovering things as we go, as Rick was saying, the slow reveal. When you walk through a space like that and you're experiencing it bit by bit, this is what we all enjoy doing in a public space. None of these, the shaded areas, should be very high so that you're still getting that surveillance right across the space. The human scale and the harmony within the space is so important. So you're going to have all these little pods, but you need themes that take you through. They keep repeating. They give you that sense that it's a harmonious space, even though you're doing something different in every little room. In this particular play space, we were using Karatha stone and Jarrah timber as the harmonising elements. Plants, of course, were throughout. The human scale is also very important, that you feel that these spaces are sized just for you. And you're not feeling lost in vast spaces. If you look at the little sandpit on the bottom left, you can see that the space holds you. There's that sense that you can see everyone in that space, you can see their faces and their expressions. These things are really important when you consider them in that sort of normal context of smorgasbord, as I call it, of rubber with things placed on it in a rectangle. It's a really big difference. To be welcoming, spaces have to radiate welcome and comfort. And by comfort, it's all those things that support a visit. The visit itself to the play space should be exciting, but then you need to feel like you as a person have been thought about. So we need the cafe, we need toilets, we need a sense of shelter, we need trees, we need bins, we need barbecues, we need a car park, and we need the sense that we can get there by buses and cars and public transport. We need all these social supports built in to make that space feel great and work well for people. We need a sense of intrigue and curiosity. The castle, the bottom left-hand image, that's in Canberra. That has just got to be one of the best play spaces in Australia. It is gorgeous. And it's just a series of tunnels and discoveries. Where am I going to pop out? Where am I going to be next? Absolutely classic piece of construction. But curiosity and intrigue can come up in that top photo where you're just using a pump, water's coming out, going back into the river that it's coming from. There's that sense of, wow, that's amazing. Magic mirror, you stand in front of the mirror and you appear upside down in it. How did that happen? Or whack this donga and music is made. Everyone loves these kind of discoveries. And to work them into your work is pure magic. And as Rick would say, you need a bit of magic. We need a variety of ways to play. Stuff them in, as many as possible, with the budget that you have. It's budget driven at the end of the day, but variety is what everyone loves in a play space. Climbing, crawling, messing around with sand and water, spinning, balancing, sliding. Get as many of these things into one space as you can, because they're true. Because variety and choice is truly valued. Seating and safety. Well, we all know we want stacks of different kinds of seats, as many different ways of sitting as possible within your budget. Backed seats with armrests, bench seats, decks with logs coming off them, platform seats, decks. People value being able to sit down right throughout the play space, and they really value it not looking like rows of empty seats. So it should be that the seats are somehow part of the whole experience, next to the experience, if you like. Interesting is that seats often make a space feel safer, because quite often seats are an attractor of people. So when you see a space that is full of people, you feel more inclined to go there. People attract people, and when people attract people, the space also feels safer. Interestingly, backed seats with armrests, people feel most safe on those. Safe in terms of they usually are backing up to something, in this case a row, a garden bed. And their personal sense of safety is enhanced by those kind of arrangements. And other people have anecdotally told me, teenagers for instance, we like coming to playgrounds because we can come here and feel safe, and we don't have to come with our own parents, but there are other parents hanging around, so we feel safe. I've heard many versions of why people feel good in playgrounds. The lady up in the top photo, she's there with her walker. She's not here with children. She comes to this playground several times a week because she likes feeling part of the hubbub of life. She feels safe, and it's just a feel-good experience in her daily life. I've heard a young man say to me, I come and hang out in playgrounds because I do my pull-ups, chin-ups, whatever, on the monkey bars, and that's where I meet lots of yummy mummies. Well, whatever it takes. We're hearing a lot of interesting stories. People like hanging out in these spaces, and seating is key to bringing people into these spaces. And we all sit and fret over what makes a space safe. Well, one of the instant ways of making a space safe is not so much the fence, it's just add people. The sense of naturalness. Well, I could go on about this for ages. I love this and what it brings to our lives so much, and what it brings to play in particular. We just can't get enough of environments that give kids a sense of connection with nature. I've noticed an intriguing thing, that when you design a play space, it's best to use a minimum of 3 natural materials together. More is, of course, much better, but a minimum of 3. So when you're looking at these photos, it's wood and mulch and rope. It's stone and mulch and plants. It's plants and mulch and wood. It's when we're starting to use complex natural materials together that the space really starts to feel amazing. Because I love it so much, here are a few more. Stone and water and sand. Sand and rope and wood. And doesn't it feel good? Doesn't it feel like you just want to get in there and have some fun yourself? And quite often, people our age are. Immersing the senses. I mean, there's a sensory experience and then there's one where you really get into it. There's so many different ways of doing this. Sound is quite a delight. I really love the speaking tubes, because quite often the conversation starts off with, "Hey, can you hear me?" And that's shouted really loud, and the other person usually says, "No, I can't." So there's sort of a magical moment that always happens for me at moments like that. But whatever it takes, whether you're making music, listening, as Rick was saying, what's sound, what's music, doesn't matter, as long as you're involved, as long as there's that invitation to be involved and that sensory experience. I'm a big one for saying that these spaces all need joy, delight and affection. Kids particularly like animals. We never stop hearing about this in consultative sessions. We like animals in our practice that are not quite the full animal. So it's not entirely that animal over there is a lizard. It is perhaps a snake. It is perhaps a monster on the moon. It is whatever you might think it might be. We're finding that art forms like this, which are accessible at a child's level, really work, because the kid lands up having a relationship with these guys. And I want to go to the park that's got the lizard. They have a point of affection with their play space. And what we're creating here is a lifetime of happy memories. And we need a store of these lifetime memories to take us through our lives and look back on and reflect. I had a happy childhood, and what's more, I'm going to have a happy life because I grew up feeling this way about my environment. It all helps. It's not that this is, a defining moment in your life. It's just, it helps you so much in your journey. And the joy, this little creature in this photo here, just look at the joy and involvement on that kid's face. And it's the open-endedness of that as well. In this particular one, he's joined a whole sort of myriad maze of logs which then lead onto a deck. All these things are so connected, but it's that sense of true affection for our public spaces that really means a lot.
Do you have the artist's name for that work? Or those works?
There actually were 2 artists in that block. This is the one and only Bernard Kaiser, and the other one is the one and only Andrew Smith. One's East Coast, one's West Coast, and luckily they work in much the same way. And probably there's some Melbourne equivalents as well. I hope to goodness there's a Tassie equivalent. Do you know? Does anyone know? Yeah. You so need these people. And they're not hard. I mean, like Andrew started off as a joiner. And he sort of has inevitably drifted into designing for play. And he's just so good because it's all open-ended, and Bernard's exactly the same. It's open-endedness But it is what you make of it, and yet it's got a goofy expression of joy on its face that you just want to go and be part of. The lizard, this particular lizard here, is almost being hugged to death. You know, it's just, sometimes the visit, I'm told, starts at Queen's Park with a little hug with the lizard. You know, you're ready to play. Movement around the playground. I've touched on this before, but that path that takes you in and around all the different play pods is just such a human need to be led and invited through a space to participate in everything on offer. And if that path can go through some interesting twists and turns, you even more want to walk down it. And this is a human need. It's not just for children, it's for everyone. It's so different going to a play space where you have that sense of the space is unfolding, you're led through it, rather than you go to the space, you sit down and that's the end of that as the adult while the child plays. We want everyone to keep moving and keep discovering and keep being involved in the whole offer of what's there. And then that movement then needs to be repeated within each play pod, that you're going in and around, up and down, balancing, walking, finding your way through an experience. I always say, if you can envisage contentment, you can design for it. Funnily enough, I don't think playgrounds are noisy places. It could just be the way I'm made. I think of them as some of the most contented places I've ever been to. They're places where you can feel so good for just having been there. And it's because they radiate these sort of qualities. I love the swing where the parents get in first and the kid is then pulled in afterwards. That to me spells contentment. I'm involved with what's going on in my life and everyone's involved, that sort of sense. The sandpit where absolutely everything is happening. There are adults sitting in the sand, there are adults sitting on decks, there are kids doing all of their things, sand castles, digging, sand and water play. But importantly, there's the cafe, there's the toilet. A lot of these parents are drinking coffee and tea. This is contentment. There's shade. You're meeting each other. Somebody's dropped their dummy, somebody else picks it up. A conversation is started. This is true contentment for everyone in our society. The sandpit below is a man reading the paper. Kids are relaxed. Other kids are just messing around. How do we design for this? We design for it by thinking about it so strongly that it falls out of your pencil as you're working. Or if you're a decision maker, that you say, this is the quality we want in our spaces. I always say, playgrounds are places where some people want to be on their own and some people want to be together in the overall sense of being together. And you can, again, these are specific things you can design for. These big chunky logs, they're huge. A log can be a one-person spot. That little girl's having a whole theatre going on in her head. She's on the stage and she is it. And that's a beautiful one-person space. And yet, a log nearby, not that far, suddenly has allowed for more social experience, where these two boys are having a whale of a time throwing balls to each other, standing on those same logs. It's how you think and it's how you design that these things come about. And it could be that a parent chooses to sit on those logs as well. It's not all about, it's not that these things are on offer simply for kids, they're on offer for everyone. That's the point of designing this way. So, what can you do? And I think we'd all agree, a child-friendly city is a community-friendly city. And then particularly when as a professional you're thinking of play, think about everyone's needs and provide a series of opportunities for lively, convivial design that values place as the cornerstone to community engagement in the public realm, because that's really what it is. Then to come back to the park that we started with at the beginning of the talk. So what was the answer I gave the consultants? You know, you might say, It was scary because they actually said to me, we've pretty much made up our minds that children don't belong in this park. We'd like you to agree with that. Okay. And they're also seriously cool consultants. It's really difficult moment. Of course kids belong in the park, so do young people. Of course they're there already. Just a few moments of observation told me that. It's very important that they're part of this park. We don't have that many parks, classic parks in Sydney. And of course, they need to be considered in the equation. It's really a no-brainer when you understand the kids are part of our community. So it just tells you where I landed up with that one.
Did you change their brief?
So that was only a week ago. I haven't heard back. When I sent the report off, it went, as I said to my husband last night, boy, that went into a deep, dark, black hole. I haven't heard a thing. I seriously suspect I've said something very unpopular. I also gave them about 15 ways of engaging children and young people and pointed out that we probably thought that there were more young people in this park than any other age group. So yes, it's actually gone into a very scary place for me. There's going to be intense advocacy, I can assure you. But you've got to stand by your belief system and say, this is what I'm up for. I am a child's right advocate rather. This is what I'm here to do, and I must do my job, because children don't have a voice in our society. We have to be their voice for them. Karen, of course, is going to say, that's about to change. It better change, but right now it hasn't changed, and all of us in the room have to do this on their behalf. We have to be really strong in taking that stance and know that we're not going to be loved by everyone, and that's too bad. Anyway, so on that note, thank you very much for listening, and that's it for me.